Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm particularly excited about this presentation. So we're doing things a little bit differently for this one. It's not geared as a investor pitch. It's more of an educational webinar, and an educational in the sense that we're going to be talking about a new project that we're working on, but it's taken a very long time to get to this point. And that background, that story that we're going to be talking about, it's an interesting perspective because you don't often hear about the struggles that real estate investors and developers go through just getting a project off the ground. So I think there's going to be a lot of insight here and some actionable takeaways. And I think some value. And at the end of the presentation, we will talk a bit about the numbers, but that's not the focus of this one. So just want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm just going to share my screen now. We can get started.
Yes, sir. So
All
excited.
right. Marco, let
So
me know.
excited.
Can you see my screen here? Everything
Yes,
reading
you're good to
well?
go. Good to go.
Perfect. So before we get started, just got to go through our traditional legal disclaimer. So the information we're going to be talking about on this presentation, it's just meant for general purposes, informational purposes, educational purposes, and it's not intended to be a substitute for professional advice. So before making any decisions about investing or about embarking on your own real estate journey, make sure you're talking to your lawyers, your accountants, your professionals, everyone who has a solid background in the industry to give you sound professional legal advice. Not what we do here and a lot of what we talk about are projections, our best guess, our opinions, and it's not meant to act as advice. It's just meant to give you kind of our interpretation of the business model behind a lot of our strategies here.
That's
So
right. That's right.
without further ado, we've got some great hosts here tonight. Marco, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background on yourself and tell the guests about how you got started in this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Marco Theodore, real estate investor and primarily a philanthropist running out of Ottawa, Ontario, the nation's capital for all of my Ottawa people watching. So for myself, I started real estate investing after in about 5 years ago. Started based on just seeing the trends in investments and seeing the advantages in real estate. When you're looking at investment, a lot of them have 2 to 3 maximize real value that they bring, but real estate is the one that hits all of the check marks for me in terms of longevity, tangible asset, inflation proof. It actually works with inflation to increase value. And so I got started in real estate and drove into the BRRRR methods and as well as the buy and hold methods, and quickly realized there is a niche for development. And so working with, I've worked several years just finding properties and looking at properties. And then when I looked at development, things started to click. So for myself now, I've been in real estate 5 years, so I'm super happy to be in the position I am and have partners such as Sam and his team and work with so many incredible people. Real estate has changed my life. It's provided me with wealth, knowledge, and as well as opportunities. And I want to be able to pass that along to people watching today.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I'll give everybody a quick background on myself. So my name is Samuel Hirschhorn. I am the leader of two companies, Biosis Real Estate Development, which is our development branch, and Biosis Designs, which is our architecture firm. The premise behind the two is that the development company will put together our deals, raise the capital, and the architecture firm will do the design work and manage the construction and lead the project management. So I've been practicing and designing and building real estate for over 13 years now. I got my start actually doing a lot of commercial and institutional projects before entering the residential space, but some noteworthy projects that I'm currently working on. There's a 74 unit retirement home in Kitchener. I have several six-story, 60 plus unit apartment buildings in Ottawa as well as in Toronto and the GTA. I kind of got frustrated in my career working for other developers as an architect and having them not listen to my advice, first one to get blamed, last one to receive credit. And I decided, well, why don't I just go into real estate development for myself? I have greater control over the design choices, the and the outcomes. So that kind of birthed Biosis Real Estate. I do have some other partners in the company, but probably most notably here is Marco and I and our relationship that got started about 2 years ago. So
Right.
before we dive into that, let's just give a quick rundown of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk a bit about this property and how we found it, the business plan and the design process behind it, the original plan, and then how that had to be adapted and turned as the market forces changed. This was between 2023, 2024, and today. A lot of volatility. So how did we adapt? How did we change the business plan? And how did we deal with the original investors and how they were kind of notified and how we addressed a lot of their needs? Then we're going to get into finding the hidden values. So what is the diamond in the rough that came out of all of this? The process it took to reposition the project, and then lastly, the opportunity for our investors. And then we'll end with a quick Q&A session. So, Marco, tell me a bit about the property, location, location, location. It's a cliche, but it rings true every time.
Every single
You
time.
can do a lot in real estate development. If you've got enough money, you can change pretty much anything. But the one thing you can't change is the location. So tell me about the site and how you found it and what makes it so attractive.
You know what, Sam? I really love what you said. The location, location, location. And this all started about 3 years ago in late of 2022. I made a strategic decision to change and shift my focus from BRRRR projects, a regular buy and hold project, into ground up and development. I began actively searching around the Ottawa region um, and for something that just had value. What we're looking at when I mean value is I'm looking for places that are near transportation, near the city hubs and whatnot. And this property came out at the right time. See, after doing a lot of walkthroughs, analyzing a lot of listing and doing a lot of feasibility checks, which some people might say is not cheap. um, Everything kind of changed when a realtor came up to me and decided, "Hey, Marco, I have a off-market deal from a distressed seller, and this property is found on Saint Laurent Boulevard." Now, if you're from Ottawa, I think everybody from Ottawa has been on Saint Laurent Boulevard, the Saint Laurent Mall in the region. You realize that Saint Laurent Mall to me is like the real heart of Ottawa. Yes, there's the downtown core, but Saint Laurent region kind of separates the downtown from the suburbs, which is like Orleans or the Gloucester suburbs. And for that, anybody that really wants to get to downtown or wants to find a middle ground that works for them for housing and career, for education, entertainment, this is the place. So after several months of doing our due diligence, we realized this is the right location. It has everything that you need around it, from shopping centers to hospitals to a industrial region where there's a lot of blue collar workers, white collar workers, and other workers as well. There's schools like the Ottawa U's like 10, 15 minutes away. There's high school. There's actually an elementary school right across the street. So if you're a family looking to really hone in a specific area, this property was it. Because if you lived there, you knew that the area had everything in everything that you would want in order to feel comfortable and feel like you don't need to move, and which just falls perfectly with the Ottawa's like mantra. Especially now, Ottawa has this new aspect of it where it wants to be a 15-minute neighborhood. And what that means is that everything that you may possibly want in terms of accommodation has to be within a 15-minute walk or bike ride away. So this just clicked. And so we closed the property a few months later by negotiating an incredible price of $1.1 million for a 19,800 square foot lot. We had the opportunity to have a vendor take back of $400,000 at 0%, We financed the rest and as well as raised whatever was necessary for us to get through our process. So we closed in July 2023, which is incredible. So it went from September all the way to July because the seller was actually the owner, original owner of the property passed away. So the seller was her son, and she passed away without a will. And for anybody that is familiar with the legal process, without a will means they're going to go through probate, which might take several months, can even take up to a year and a half. And so for us, it gives us ample time to do our feasibility report, to look at investors, to have conversation with builders, to have conversation with the city, and just really go through our due diligence process.
That's great. Yeah, I think you touched on some key aspects there. The idea of the 15-minute city, which is was particularly of interest to tenants and renters. You know, Ottawa is moving away from a car-centric model. They're trying to drive traffic to
Right.
their public transit with the expansion of the light rail transit system. But that also means like you need to have your shopping, your groceries, your gym, your healthcare all within a very short radius as a tenant, just to make my life a little bit more easy to live and to navigate, but also to cut down on that traffic time. So being well within the proximity of the Ottawa General Hospital, I'll just go back one slide. So yeah, right here, point number 12, that's the Ottawa General Hospital. You've got Food Basics to the south. You've got your independent grocer, which is literally 500 meters from the property. You could walk there and back with your groceries. You know, you've got a Fit for Less. You've got a Giant Tiger, and then the Saint Laurent Shopping Center, which is a large employment district that's right up to the north, as well as the Ottawa train yards. This is a major transportation hub as well as a shopping district. So
Right.
when we were looking at the property, we agree like this is a prime location. Not to mention the
Mhm.
schools that you talked about. Like if you're in a transition from coming out of you just just got married, you want to start a family, you want to be have access to schools. But probably even more so if you're a teacher, if you're a traveling nurse, having a rental unit that's close to where you work, whether it's the hospital, the school, or if you're, a retail worker, like this is a prime location for that. Now,
Absolutely.
now, Marco, like we kind of saw some pictures here of the property. Kind of walk us through because it's not your average single family home here. We can see there's some unique spaces. So tell us a bit about the property and some of the challenges that you've faced in financing and managing this property.
Yes, so Sam, the property came with a bunch of what I like to call attitude. It came with character. It's not your typical property, right? What may seem like a single family home or a single family dwelling was actually three units, three self-sustained unit, a two bedroom, a one bedroom, and as well as a large space, large commercial quote unquote space that was being used as a church. So that presented itself a little bit of a challenge on our on our first refinance because when we closed under a private lending, which took a little bit of time. So let me actually walk you through some of the process here. Uh, so the property it was vacated when we bought it. So when we closed under private financing, they didn't pose much of a challenge there, but it did pose a challenge in terms of our closing and our financial metrics we'll get to after. But the property is a huge lot. So when it comes to a huge lot and probably the biggest one on the street, it comes with a lot of opportunities. And when we're looking at the zoning bylaw and we're looking at what's actually possible on the land, we notice that, well, we noticed that originally on our original plan, it was 24 units that we get on the lot, about on and off 24 units using our feasibility report and our previous urban planner.
Yeah.
And that was the best case scenario back then. But things change, and
Before we
when
jump
things
into that, Marco, just tell us a bit about the units. Tell us like what's this space here? It looks like a church. Why is there a big open space with drums and a pew there?
Yes, absolutely. It is operated and it has operated as a church, which is an interesting concept. See, the previous owner, she was a pastor, so she had her own church. So she changed the concept of her whole entire home in order to have a space where people, a community where people could come in and worship. Now, for us, I am a man of God, so I don't really like to kick people out. But I do know that, but I do did have to do some of my research with the city to make sure that this is still okay. Because last thing you want to do is draw any unwanted attention to the property.
Yeah, how did that affect financing? Because a church in a residentially zoned lot, I don't think complies with zoning. But then also it tends to make lenders a little bit skittish. So how did you approach that in the closing process?
Yeah, so that actually came up in the closing process. Now, because we were able to get it under private financing, it changed the metric of how our financing was going to go. So there was a little bit of a challenge there. So what happened, there was a little bit of challenge in terms of raising capital, and as well as finding a qualifier because once the lender kind of backs off or they kind of ask for different metrics, now you have to go back to your qualifier and understand can they provide the metrics that the lender wanted. Now, original qualifier had to change our qualifier and move on with our partner Gavin, which is an incredible person. And so the way that the metrics change is we went from having so as I said before, we had the $400,000 VTB, and we were looking at around $650,000 in lender financing from based on our letter of interest or commitment. And that changed because our once the appraisal came in and the lender started looking at the pictures and everything in there, they went and changed the financing metrics from $650,000 in financing to $560,000 in financing, plus extra costs, upfront fees, upfront
Wow.
everything just to secure their position. That created a bit of a challenge for us because the money that we had raised in order to close and prove and go on with our project process shifted.
Yeah,
Now
you would
we
have
were
had to
going
come with a bit more cash to the table, right?
That's right. And imagine that this is literally a week. This is a week past our initial closing date. So
Hmm
our lender is changing all of those metrics, and we've already raised capital. So now we have to go back to our investors, say, hey, things are shifting. There's going to be a shift. We noticed that there was a little bit of a shift in the market that was coming along, but the financing shift, it really drew us back. And
hmm
so having those conversations with the investors were something that was a bit of a challenge. But most importantly is how did it impact the property? How did it impact the project?
hmm
Well, it impacted it big. So our
Yeah.
initial plan was 24 units with some parking spot in the back. We had design, we had concept, and we wanted to wholesale this to a lot of builders or other investors that are in the development space. That created an issue as well because we don't have the capital in order to go move on with a site plan application or zoning bylaw, and as well as with the market shifts in terms of a quantitative tightening that was going on, interest rate were rising, building costs were going up, and when there's market uncertainties, buyers back out. And if there's no buyers, there's no exit.
hmm
That
And
created a challenge for us,
I,
and now closing date is well past us. We have to close at this point. We also have to shift where our direction of the project goes.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's around the time that we met because I seem to remember, how I don't quite remember how we were introduced, but I do remember jumping on a Zoom call with you. You know, you kind of walking me through the property and the project, and I was looking at this, and we did do some underwriting and just said, well, the 24 unit proposal it doesn't quite work in this market. Right? I think you were trying to wholesale it at the time, and we ended up passing. But yeah,
Yeah.
did you have other similar conversations with other potential buyers?
Actually, we had a lot of conversation with a lot of buyers, and some of them weren't exactly the way that you've seen it, right? You looked
Hmm
at the market where it is, how costs were going to affect development, were going to affect builders, and you see it as well right now. There's a lot of projects in Ottawa and as well in the Greater Toronto region, which actually have gone to a halt or foreclosure or even foreclosure after build because investors or the builders haven't been able to refinance.
Hmm.
And so when you notice this, we also had conversation with other investors who still seen an opportunity there, but they wanted to know how far can we take it before they took it on. So for
Hmm.
me, when we're looking at it, I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity to learn about development, learn about the process, and get hands-on experience,
Hmm.
but as well as protect investors' capital, uh, shift the project outlook because of the market shift as well,
Hmm.
and see what do we need? We need more capital. Do we need to put it for sale? How do we stabilize the property? And those were some of the problems that we faced.
Hmm.
Now, when we face these problems, my objective was protect investors' capital, create an exit path, and move the project forward by the right way. What does that
Hmm.
mean for us? It is to protect investors' capital, we have to stabilize the property. So when we got it vacant, we put tenants in. We actually found a tenant that wanted to operate it as a home and a church. So he lives in the basement and he operates his own church upstairs.
So wait,
Uh,
wait, wait, just hold on. So the original owner was a pastor operating as a church, and you
yeah,
found a replacement tenant who also operates a church.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, at first I didn't think they were going to do a church. They said, "Hey, I just want to have a place where I can have some community gatherings of some friends." And quickly over time, it became a church. And luckily enough for us, it didn't pose a problem to other tenants, and didn't
Hmm.
pose a problem to the city, didn't pose a problem with the neighbors as well. So it worked hand in hand, and they're paying a pretty good price for the space as well. And that created stability for us, which was a key point because now, with the high cost of closing, which included like prepaid interest, taxes for 3 years, water bills from a prior owner, um, all of these other lawyer fees, private broker fee, private lender fee, all of these costs added up, and we ended up with as we anticipated about 150 to $200,000 in cash. We
Hmm.
ended up about $15,000 in cash at the end of the process, which is huge discrepancy. And so
Hmm.
for that to stabilize all of their costs and their carrying costs, we have to stabilize the property. We
Yeah,
also
yeah,
looked
that
at other
15 grand, that's not going to get you very far.
not at all, not at
Yeah.
all. We got a couple reports in, and then that's it, right?
Yeah. So you're
And
just purchased a property, you've only got 15 grand in the bank. You've got investors who are expecting their money back in a market that's down. Tell me a bit about the plan and some of the lessons you learned through that process.
yeah, absolutely. So the plan shifted. We actually, what I've learned, some of my key lessons that when you formalize a plan, you have to make sure that has all of your executions ready to go. So for us, when that shift occurred, our plan also had to shift. So we stabilized and we also looked at selling the property in order to create that exit path because any plan, the number one priority is how do you get the money out at the end of the deal, right? And so a lot of lessons came. So when we did this, first lesson was the planning. The second lesson was bringing on the right team, the right partners, because they change everything, which is where we started to have those conversations, Sam.
Hmm.
And and that conversation actually shifted my mindset, right? Another thing
Hmm.
that we did is I learned was working with the right investors and having the right structure. Working with right investors mean having investors that have the same mindset as you.
Hmm.
Instead of investors that are anticipating their money exactly when you said, things can shift. And when you have these conversations with investors, they're looking for clarity, they're looking for transparency, they're looking for resilience, which for us is what we really, really stood on our character in order to
Hmm.
move that project forward. And the last one is the execution and exit. We have to create a winning deal. So we have to be able to pivot quickly. We have to protecting the downside so that we can have that longevity aspect. And our exit should also be flexible, not fixed. So we had a fixed exit. We were looking at a 6 to 9 months project with a wholesale deal, as opposed to saying, "Hey, we're looking at the project overall. Where are the potential exits, and where can investor come along with us for the ride if it goes to the end?" Right? The end being the construction, the development, and the refinancing at the end.
Hmm.
Now we were only thinking short term. So all of our investors were also thinking short term. And
Hmm.
those lessons is align yourself with investors that understand the plan, but also create create plans that you can execute on and that create winning deals.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to say, in development, you need plan A, B, C, and D. Otherwise, you can get caught with your
Absolutely.
pants down, right?
Yeah, yeah. When the tides go low, that's when you find out who was swimming naked. And for us, thankfully, we were not swimming naked, but we were definitely getting pulled we were getting pulled back, right?
Hmm.
We're at a phase where we're nearly drowning, and in order for us to refocus and move on with dedication,
Hmm.
perseverance, we knew that we had to bring on the right people, and that's where the deal itself shifted. You know,
Wow.
this is where we
That's
met. That's where we actually met Sam and the Biosis team because I knew that my experience where I am would also leave me underwater and leave investors out to dry. And so we had to shift our focus. We brought on the right team. What really helped me and understand that this was the right move was when we had that first initial conversation, Sam. Most urban planners, when we're looking at the deal from what is the current zoning bylaw, but when we had that conversation, chat, Sam, you looked at it as what's coming, what's
Mhm.
the potential opportunities, what's the vision that we can set in stone that's going to also create the highest and best use scenario.
Mhm.
That for me made sure that we were aligned in terms of our mindset, in terms of the thought, but as well as the biosis had a good vision and a plan for the long term, for a good longevity. And for me, that was very powerful because I knew that working with Biosis would bring this deal from a struggling deal to something that has great opportunity. So Sam, please tell us, like, people want to know who's Biosis and what do you guys bring to the table? Because I could talk all the good about you, but I want the people to hear from you yourself.
And I will never stop you from flattering us. So thank you. Yeah. So one of the things we noticed when we were evaluating this project, we were working with other people in the Ottawa area, and we learned that the city of Ottawa was working on a brand new zoning bylaw. So we did our own investigation into what could be built, and that's kind of what caused me to reach back out to you and see how we might be able to work together. Because we do have a very a technically strong team. So it's not just myself. I work with three other partners. So my partner, Michael Davidson, he's a longtime developer. He's bootstrapped his own real estate development portfolio. His background is in tech sales, so he's more the guy picking up the phone, getting on calls with suppliers and with investors. And then we also work with a guy named Graham Potter. He's a civil engineer, has been designing civil systems for his clients for well over 15 plus years, has worked on some very large projects, as well as a lot of residential stuff. And then a friend of mine, Dakota Scott, I went to architecture school with him up in Carleton. He went the architectural technology route, so he's very experienced on the 3D modeling aspect, design and building systems. So as a team, we're very technically sound when it comes to real estate development and design, with over 50 years combined experience. We also bring a fresh perspective to this project, and that's in our ability to identify opportunity through our own highest and best use analysis, which is something we've worked on for many, many years. Um, On top of that, we've built up a system and process behind the real estate development business. And that's something we brought to this project. I think something that you and Gavin really needed were those background systems and a clear step-by-step process on how to take a project through development, because this is probably the first project of the kind that you've done. And for anyone who hasn't been brought up as a professional in the construction industry, this is where a lot of people get tripped up. So we're able to bring that to the project. We also have our in-house architecture firm that leads the design and we do all the underwriting in-house. But probably most important is that we bring a collaborative culture. And that helps because it is a team sport. Like development is a team sport. The more people you work with, the greater things that you can build. So we didn't come to you and say, we want to buy this and then say, see you later. We said, why don't we partner? Why don't we work on this together? And I think that that strengthened the team. It actually increased the chances of this project being successful.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And as well, like this right here creates an opportunity where I don't have to hold on to all of the roles in the deal.
Mhm.
I can trust the experts in the development side, and I can trust my expertise and my experience on the property and the management side.
Hmm.
And so separating these roles allowed me to focus on something that I am strong at and giving Biosis a role where they're strong and they're capable, and they have both
Hmm.
the architectural and the development side, so they can manage that project thoroughly.
That's right. We definitely had complementary skills and things that we brought to the table because we weren't going to be the ones handling managing the property, boots on the ground, dealing with the tenants. We're going to be the ones in the background who are planning, doing the drawings, doing the underwriting, and launching the project. So you brought a lot to the table in that side of things, and we're bringing the expertise, and together we're really joining the yin and the yang.
Absolutely. I wanted to know, like, from you, what interested you about the property and what some of the hidden values that you found that made this deal from potential to possible?
Yeah, so besides the location itself, which is a pretty good spot, this is what we identified with the new zoning bylaw. Any property, a residentially zoned property that is along a major street or a minor corridor, is as of right going to be permitted to build up to 6 stories. They
Wow.
also removed the cap on density. So you're able to fit as many units as you can on the site as long as it conforms with the setbacks, angular plane requirements, parking, etc. The other aspects that Ottawa has really pushed for is to remove the minimum parking requirements. Instead, they actually put a cap on the number of spots you can have on the site because they do want to drive traffic into their public transit system. And what it does is it actually opens things up for developers to add more units, add more value to tenants. So when we did our initial evaluation of the site, we determined that we could actually fit 70 units with 25 parking spaces. And we looked at it in kind of a different way because the site is deeper than it is wide. We thought, why
Mhm.
don't we orient the building horizontally and be able to fit as many units as we could? So this was the design that we came up with and that we brought to the city. Um, what we should have done is actually drawn on our expertise or our experience with the city in the past to understand what they're looking for. So
Yeah.
in this instance, we went, sat it down in front of the city, and they said, this doesn't meet our requirements because we want to see more engagement on the frontage. We want to have the main entrance and, residential uses as part of the engagement with the street. So someone walking by the site isn't going to see a garbage pickup room. They're not going to see a bike storage room. They're going to see either residential units or amenity space so that it's a bit more dynamic from that regards. They also
Yeah.
looked at the parking layout and said, no, we don't want to see any parking. We want you to move it all to the back. So that basically triggered a complete redesign. But in retrospect, I actually agree with their positioning. Unfortunately, it meant we lost a few parking spaces, and we lost a unit or two here and there. So this was the second iteration that we came up with, a design that was based on another project that we were doing for a client that met the city's requirements for the bylaw. It was a lot more efficient in its layout. However, there were some issues with the design that we found as we were going through it. Number one, the main floor, because of the treatment with the parking and having rear access with barrier free, and the use and the garbage room and the bike storage room, it meant that it was a different layout from levels 2 to 6, and that was structurally inefficient. So
Wow.
a lot of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're doing an initial design for a building is how are you distributing the structural loads? The more transfer slabs or transfer beams that you have to integrate, the more steel columns and steel structure, the more expensive it's going to be. So we realized as we were going through this that it was going to be a little pricey. So we had to find ways of value engineering this. And as this is going on, something that my team and I have been really focusing on is this idea of modular construction. So modular construction, to give you it in a nutshell, there's a few different types. You can do a panelized system where your walls, floors, roofs are built in a shop, and then it's shipped to site and then assembled. Or there's a fully volumetric modular approach where a manufacturer builds the entire unit. That's everything from sheathing, insulation, vapor barrier, drywall, interior finishes, your sinks, your plumbing. It's all done in a shop. And then the fully completed unit is shipped to site and stacked on top of itself. So the benefits to this, uh, you're talking about a huge compression on the timelines. So your design process and your permits and approvals is about the same, but you can actually start construction of the modules because they're pre-approved plans. You can start construction before you have your building permit. So once you get your permits, the only stuff that you're doing on site is the site works, moving the dirt around, getting your building systems and utilities in place, and then you're building your foundations. And once the foundations are set, that's when the units start arriving on site. And it's literally a lift truck and a few guys guiding it into place, and they're stacking them. So the time savings are considerable. You build a lot faster, but there's also a higher degree of quality control. If you
Right.
imagine, someone building a building on site, they're subjected to weather, rain, hail, whatever. There are multiple trades that all need to be working, and they're often climbing over each other, tripping over each other's tools. The plumbers are trying to lay their pipes while the electricians are trying to run their conduit. It can actually have a huge effect on the timelines, and especially if a trade doesn't show up, if it screws up your whole sequencing. So that's completely eliminated with the modular manufacturing process. There's also less waste, better working conditions. You don't need scaffoldings or cranes just to install siding on the side of a building. They can literally do it with a step ladder. And it's a lot more sustainable. You get higher levels of energy conservation, you get better airtight units, and it's just a cleaner build on the site. And logistically, like you don't have big staging areas, you don't need areas for garbage and all that stuff. You're not going to get huge traffic backups because it's all done in the factory. So there are some significant benefits to going modular. And we decided this site, it's kind of perfect for it. A lot of sites that are misshapen or oddly shaped, you can't really set this up for modular because modular is very rectilinear, rectangular. And they do it that way so that the loads can get transferred right the way through the building. But this site is a great rectangle site. It's got plenty of room at the back if we do need to stage, which we shouldn't need that much staging, but because it's so rectangular, it was very easy to fit these modules into place. So this is the latest design that we came up with. It's got a drive aisle because the zoning bylaw changed again, requiring a 3.5 meter setback from the property line for parking. So it's got a drive aisle that kind of goes underneath the building on the main floor, and then levels 2 to 6 are all these stacked units. Even on the main floor, our first level is a mirror of the upper levels as well. So all the forces are being stacked. And then we're able to divide these units up into elongated modules, which rather than just doing one unit as one module, which would give us about 120 modules to manufacture and ship, now we're doing it as a back to back. We're only
Yeah.
doing about 65 modules so we're cutting our transportation costs down by half. We also designed this so that the stairwells and the elevator shaft are all built in. So it's all manufactured in the shop. We won't have to do any site pouring or core or building of the core. It's all built within that module that gets shipped on the back of a flatbed truck. So this is what the design's going to look like. It's a nice design, kind of has a modern take, but it uses affordable materials that are easy to connect. Because one of the things about module is it will have seams. There will be connection points. So our job as the architect is to figure out an elegant way of hiding those connection points and making this look like this building was built conventionally, not like it was a modular build. And I think that's kind of what we've achieved here.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
I
so
was,
we talked a bit about the benefits for the project, but the corresponding benefits get passed on to our investors. So here's kind of the benefits there. We're talking faster timelines. So instead of the project typically taking 2 years to get through approvals and another 2.5 to build, it's going to be done a year in for approvals and built within 12 months after that. So at that point, we'll be able to pull out the equity and get all of our investor capital back, which is huge, right? One of the biggest things that investors are afraid of is, well, how do we get our money back? Well, this is how, and when compared to conventional construction, it's a lot quicker. That correspondingly means properties cash flowing sooner, faster times to occupancy, faster time to profit, and that improves the overall profitability of the project. In addition to this, going modular improves the certainty. So that means the risk profile. A big risk for any new construction are delays and cost overruns. Well, we're using a fixed price model with the manufacturer, and those modules that they're building are pre-approved, so we don't need any inspections on site. That's not going to cause delays. The fixed price is guaranteed by the manufacturer, and because there's no issues popping up on site, we're not going to have the same number of change orders as a conventional project would. And then lastly, the logistics are a lot simpler, a lot easier to control, which means that we have better overall costs, as well as the ability to allocate labor in a controlled manner. And the result is, better quality build, steel frame construction. It's more structurally sound. The double wall aspect creates higher SDC ratings or built-in soundproofing, as well as a more energy efficient building. And lastly, we do have better warranties, fewer defects, and the manufacturer does put up a bonding.
nice, nice. Now, for we noticed that there's obviously there's a big shift, right? So shifting and repositioning this project improved not just the financial performance, the overall performance of the deal and its stability over a long-term period, which is great. Especially we're going with modular, it creates a faster timeline, which gives us more time to focus on on the on the refinancing at the end of the build, and as well putting tenants in and really owning and performing this asset.
Yeah, 100%. And this slide we just put in to kind of illustrate how that translates. So we are launching this project. We're in our first round of capital raise. We've already injected a significant amount of capital ourselves to get it to this point. But we're now in, I guess it's our second round to be to be accurate. But what we're doing is we need to raise about 600 grand. That's going to get us through to be shovel ready. So all of our site plan approvals and the engineering studies that need to go into that, as well as the design and our permit application. All of that's going to require a capital injection about 600 grand. The great thing is for this round, we're offering a 10% preferred bonus to investors. And what that means is that, We typically do a 70-30 split for the project level. So 30% our team retains, the sponsors retain, 30% goes to our investors. But the early investors in this round get that extra 10% bonus that accrues until you get your money back. And then once everyone's got their money back, it's a 70-30 split from there. So on a $100,000 investment, you're looking, if you're to make that today, you're looking at a just under 30% annual rate of return. You get three times your money back at the end of the project, and that equates to about a little over $200,000 in profit. So we're only looking for a few investors in this round to help us get it to that shovel-ready state. But you can already tell, like the faster timelines, the higher quality costs. It's really we're projecting some definitely above average returns on this one.
It's just
Uh,
fantastic. If you're an investor, you're looking for something that outperforms the market, but that gives you stability, that is risk adverse, and as well it has a longevity aspect to it because stock market can win today, lose tomorrow. But when you're thinking about long term, you're thinking assets that grow over time, and this is one right here.
Exactly. So if it's something you're interested in learning more about, I encourage you to scan that QR code at the left, schedule a call with myself or Marco, and we'll kind of walk you through the projects and dive into the financials a bit more detail. Alternatively, you can scan the QR code on the right, download our one pager. It'll give you a bit more information about the investment opportunity.
All right, all right. And so, what's in store for us now going forward?
Yeah, because we love educating and we have a strong team with a long history in real estate design and development. We're pleased to be launching a new initiative. It's going to be a monthly mastermind where we're going to be talking about all things real estate design and development. So we've called it the Developer's Playbook. There'll be topics ranging from architectural design to real estate development and all of the subtopics in wrapped up into that. We will be bringing on expert guests to discuss their experiences and some of their projects. The main goal is to have actionable strategies and takeaways for our guests and for our attendees, as well as some market updates, analysis, and tips. And then creating an open discussion, live Q&A, and problem solving because as a community, it's so important to approach design and development as a community event, as a team sport, and really a rising tide raises all ships. That's the mentality behind this. So keep an eye out for it. We're still setting things up, but when the offer comes around to sign up for a mastermind, I encourage everyone to do so.
Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of values to exchange and a lot of information given. So if you are there and you want to, if you are there, you're going to earn a lot more. You're going to be some of the first people to get our perspective on deals, lands, and opportunities, and as well as you have the opportunity to move on and do your own later on. Now, we are speaking based on our own knowledge and our own experience. So always, always seek the professionals for additional advice or for real advice. And if you want to get involved, you know where to reach out to.
That's right. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We're very excited to be launching this project and to be able to work with investors to bring more housing to Ontario. It's much needed, and somebody's got to do it because right now, most of the developers, they're just stuck and nothing's getting built, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Stuck
right.
behind the perpetuated numbers. I had the saying, I heard an investor once say that it's like anything that you put in proposals and spreadsheets is always positive. There's never
Yeah.
any negative numbers in there. So you can never outweigh what bad can happen. What you can do is prepare better. And that's why we
Yeah.
have the right team, we have the right mindset, and not just looking at just our spreadsheet, but we've overlooked the market overall and seen where's the good, where's the bad,
Yeah.
and where do we position ourselves in order to make investors win. And all of that's going to be shared throughout the developers playbook. So thank you all, everybody, and we'll see you guys next time.
Great. Have a good night.